Change is omnipresent. If you throw your vision outside, all you see are the scattered byproducts of change that occurred years, decades, centuries, or even millennium ago. Our life indeed is a series of natural and spontaneous changes. We were given the mandate and was stipulated to live a life and inhabit an earth that is prosperous with change. And we were currently savoring these improvements and making the most of their possible applications and use, whatever they may be. Even in our social life and the society we are living in, changes are apparent and as if engaged with us. How we see and fathom things at the moment were different years ago, and this is a result of none other than one thing: the quote-unquote change. Changes in our lives occurred frequently, and they can take the form of greater freedom, fewer discrimination, a happier and more convenient existence than ever before, a far more sophisticated technology, greater empowerment of women and oppressed minorities, or, to put it another way, more capable, more intellectual, and more technologically propelled humanity. On the other hand, change can also take the shape of a more populated and polluted planet, more social segregation where racism is no longer the major cause, more hate and expostulations reinforcing the cancel culture on the internet, and more heated up futile international disputes, among other things. Having all these things mentioned, the question comes back to the underlying truth about change. Questions like, does all change that happen is good? Does it do more good than harm? Is it truly worth it to gratify change, especially social change? It is for us to find out. The way human interactions, relationships, behavior patterns, and cultural standards change over time is referred to as social change. These changes eventually modify socio-cultural institutions, concepts, and regulations, all of which will have a long-term impact on our society. These shifts and transformations are not always positive or negative, but they are significant. On the surface, we may not notice social change. It can take years or even centuries of action to cause one change. It is crucial for students and members of a fast-changing society to reflect on prior social developments and how they've influenced us now. Women, for example, they were once barred from entering school and have an access to education. Now, men and especially women of all colors, regardless of religions, nations, and creeds, can go to school without prohibitions, and that they can get their education even for free. Additionally, bestowing of the right to suffrage for women is a polarizing moment in the human history. It has helped millions of women move closer to equality in all aspects of life. This movement created a leeway for the women to advocate for job opportunities, more fair wage, education, birth control, and so on. This is why social change is significant. Having that said, I can say that we cannot advance as a society without social change. The freedom that we are currently enjoying at the moment will and can only be attributed to social change. We have changed our values and perception as a nation. As a result, we fought the oppressors with all might and courage. And huge thanks to our national heroes and to every Filipino that have contributed to our liberty. Thanks for the gift of freedom. Take this recent scenario from the Philippine politics for instance. The victory of a long-gone, demonized surname of the Marcoses is just one of the million backwashes of social change. For decades, the amount of hate that the Marcoses have received was flooding and overflowing. Like, who would have thought that Bongbong Marcos will going to be proclaimed as the President of the Philippines given the history of his family and the amount of hatred they have received from the Filipino community. Basically, the perception of the majority of Filipino have changed over time due to many factors and reasons. One of which is the gradual unfolding of the quote-unquote truth, and that the derogatory narratives about Marcoses was just another form of brainwashing. As if. As I have mentioned earlier, the positive impact of social change in education is solid. Although it was solid, there are still loopholes that it contributed to education. The impact of technology to our learners is immensely good, but only for those students who use it solely for the purpose of improving themselves and pursuing numerous learning opportunities. However, it has had a number of negative consequences for students who become addicted to social media and video games. These students no longer pay attention to their education and instead pursue playing mobile games and waste their time on futile entertainments on social media. Well, not only is their education is affected, their values and mindset were also in grave danger. A study shows that mobile games can make a person become ill-tempered and distressed. Also, a study shows that social media causes depression and several mental unstableness to a person. Additionally, hatred and violence can be expressed in a variety of ways on social media and in video games as well. Twitter, for example, is a good avenue for uncontrolled hate and criticisms. There's this infamous trend in Twitter that is called cancel culture. It is when a person did something that appears to be unrighteous to the societal standard, he or she will automatically get cancelled without any further public scrutiny. Last but not the least, social change is the best, especially when it comes to popularizing positive values such as empathy and thinking for the greater good of everyone. There's this recent news wherein my faith in humanity was immediately restored. It was at this time when a couple of scientists have protested and warned the public about the possible devastation of our planet in the upcoming years. They said that we only have few years to enjoy this planet if we will not stood up together and address the serious and detrimental environmental threats to us, particularly global warming. There are two reactions that the human race made. First, they panic, and we can't blame them for that. Secondly, they look for solutions to prevent the catastrophe to happen, which is a good intervention and reaction in itself. To finally wrap all things together, social change might have been dichotomized into good and bad. It is good at some point and remotely damaging on the other hand. However, one thing is for sure. Regardless of what effect it might have caused, change in general is necessary and change is inevitable. That's all. Thank you for watching.